a breathwork session is like years of therapy in an hour. And
Oh, it
I'm
was for me.
yeah, I'm so glad, and I'm so glad like you were able to come and experience it too. And I'm so glad you had a good experience. Um,
I was crying.
yeah, that and I know I joke, I'm like, yep, I get paid to make people cry. It's great.
You're watching Flow State, conversations with athletes, artists, and entrepreneurs about the ups and downs of a life totally immersed in doing what they love. My name is Nick Willicke. I'm the host of the show, and I'm also the co-founder of Sojin, where we make organic CBD and herbal tinctures for a healthy brain and nervous system. Today, I had the pleasure of speaking with Rebecca Tamm. Rebecca is the owner and manager of Michigan Massage and Wellness. It's a full-service massage and health clinic based in Troy, Michigan. They offer everything from deep tissue massages to yoga to breath work. One of the reasons that I was so excited to have this conversation is because Rebecca and I got to talk about everything from her personal journey dropping out of high school to start her career to why she believes so deeply in breath work, which she calls 6 months of therapy condensed into 1 hour. Before we jump into the episode, this episode is brought to you by the Sojin Holiday Bundle. The Holiday Bundle is a special holiday promotion that we're running where you can get all 3 of our best-selling tinctures, the Focus, Calm, and Sleep tinctures, for just $99. That's usually a $175 value. So if you're looking for a stocking stuffer or a gift for friends, family, coworkers, then head over to our website and check that out. And now, a conversation with Rebecca Tamm. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did.
Rebecca Tamm, thank you so much for joining us on the Flow State podcast. We're really happy to have you on.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be on.
Yeah, we're excited to have you on. So I want to talk about everything from talk about psychedelics. We'll talk about your massage practice, Michigan Massage and Wellness. We'll talk about developing people. I even want to get to talking about dating a little bit too, if we have time. So we'll kind of cover as many.
Oh, I have so many stories. So many stories. Yeah.
Good.
I used to threaten that I actually had a dating blog many years ago when I was younger and more active on the dating scene, where I called it "I straightened my hair for this."
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
That was the name of your blog.
That was the name of it because I have curly hair and I would always straighten my hair. And I had some dates, and afterward, I'm like, I straightened my hair for this. Yeah.
I was going to ask you what name you picked for your blog. That was like going to be my first question.
Yeah, and I always say, like, if I'm ever going to write like a memoir, it's just going to be called "Forget It, I'll Do It Myself," because, well, as I said before we started recording, right, it's hard to depend on people.
Is that also in relation to your dating experiences primarily, or what's the inspiration for that memoir?
Yeah, just life, just everything. Like, I look at my dog sometimes and I'm like, I provide for you. I get up and let you guys out. I walk you every day. I feed you. Like, what do you do for me? I mean, besides provide, unconditional love and obsession, but
My favorite.
they're okay for that.
My favorite thing to do with my dog is he just like loves. I just love to give him a good hug.
Yeah, like they're great for that.
You ever feel like when you're hugging a human, there's like a duration of time it's like no long. It's like they're like they're like uncomfortable by the amount of time. You know what I mean? Like,
right, like you're getting into kind of like creepy hug territory. Yeah.
Yes.
And I have a couple of really good friends, and like one, she lives in Lansing. Hi, Tiffany, if you're listening. She's the best hugger, and I love like when we hang out when she comes down, to this area, because she just gives the best hugs. Like they're nice and solid, and like you just, and I've had some really like weak ass hugs too, and dating too. My God, if a guy can't even hug you properly, well,
That's a sign.
Yeah, that's another podcast for another time.
So today we'll talk about psychedelics. We'll talk about your practice, your style of breathwork as therapy. Um, to start things off, though, tell us a little bit about kind of the beginning, childhood, where you grow up, and I think you're based here in Michigan, right? And you grew up in Michigan as
Yep.
well.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I grew up in Ferndale. I live in Clawson now. I've lived here for almost 15 years.
Okay.
And yeah, I had, a very boring childhood. My parents, they were still married up until the time my dad died in October of 2021. Um, and, I have an older brother and a younger sister. And, I realize now, like, I definitely had middle child syndrome, but
Mm-hmm.
also what's nice about being the middle child is like, I mean, not that I did anything bad, but we just kind of flew under the radar and, like did our own thing. And I don't know, I guess that's why I'm so independent now. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I had a really just normal, basic childhood, and back in my day, because I can say that now in my 40s, like we had, our friends on the street were like the people that we hung out with. We didn't have social media or phones, and thank God, because I can't even imagine what it would be like growing up today with what kids are going through.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, grew up in Ferndale, went to Ferndale schools. Actually dropped out of high school halfway through my senior year because I just hated it.
Mm.
And my parents and I had a fight about it, but they let me, make my own decision. And I left school on Friday at midwinter break, and Monday I started working full time at my job. So, it definitely
Wow.
wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna hang out and just be a slacker. I got my first job when I was 14 years old at Dairy Queen on 9 Mile in Ferndale. And let me tell you, those cones are like really hard to make. But people love me because I always gave them like way too much ice cream. You're supposed to have, like weigh them, and I don't know. Um, and yeah, and then when I was 24, yeah, 24. I enrolled in massage school totally on a whim. I had
Before you get
never
to
given.
that,
Oh,
before you do
yeah.
massage, go get to the massage school part. Um, you are a very independent person. Um, that's a quality about you that I really appreciate. Talk about a little bit. Is that from you think your childhood and before you dropping out of? I feel like you dropping out of high school is kind of a sign of that. But yeah, talk about that a little bit. Like talk about your independence and how important that is was to you as a child.
I mean, I don't really know. I mean, I was very. Okay, so have you heard of Gretchen Rubin? You know her, right?
Heard of her? Yeah.
She's an author. Yeah. So she has this test. It's called the Four Tendencies,
Okay.
and it's like the questioner, the upholder, the obliger, and the rebel. And several years ago, I took her test, and of course, I'm the rebel. And, my mom would tell me, I mean, I would be like 3 years old. She'd be, going to give me a bath, and she said, you would just fold your arms and say, you're not the boss of me. And I would like run out the house naked. So apparently, I was just like a little spitfire from the start.
Love that.
And, I don't know. And like high school, I was really a loner, and I
Hmm.
always say you could not pay me enough money to go back to high school. I mean, if I went back as the person that I am now, I probably would still leave because those people would just drive me insane. Like, okay, you're all stupid and I don't want to be around you. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Like I always did things, just kind of figured it out. But when I was in high school, I thought I would get married and have kids by the time I was 20 because that's what people are
Midwestern
doing. Like
dream.
that's yeah, that was like, I mean, and that's what some of my, friends did and family members. And now at 44, I'm like, wow, thank God that didn't happen.
Hmm.
Because I mean, you know, again, I never anticipated to be living alone in my house for the last almost 15 years. But now I'm at a point of like, My house is great for me and the dogs, and I don't know, I'd have to buy a bigger house if another person showed up so we
Hmm.
could like have our own space. Yeah. So I've just,
You've always been
you
like
know,
independent
yeah, I guess so. I mean,
and a little,
started my
and a
business.
little. There's the loneliness is important too. I feel like I was homeschooled growing up. Did I tell you that?
No.
Yeah. So I had basically myself and my studies a lot on a
Yeah.
lot of days. So I can relate to that. I can relate to that kind of feeling of like, but what's cool about your story, because you and I have talked before this, what's cool about your story is that you have such a good social community today. So it's such an interesting dichotomy for me that it's like, as a child, it's like, ugh, I can't stand high school. I can't stand this community here. That the other end of that spectrum for you is like, you created this life that's different than what was kind of the norm of our society where we grew up, but you've created this life for yourself, and you've got a sick community now. So just an observation. That's a really cool trajectory slash dichotomy.
Yeah, and like I work really hard to just maintain relationships with people. And I don't know if
Hmm.
part of it comes from like running a business and me being like the point person of everything for the last, 18 years. But, it's also hard too because, when you are just like one person, you feel like it's all on you to do everything. And then you get to a point like, again, damn it, I wish I could come home and like somebody fed the dogs and let them out and cleaned the kitchen up and made me dinner. Um, but then, I see what some of my friends go through sometimes and like, maybe just sitting at home on a Saturday night with my dogs and a movie and like doing a puzzle isn't the worst thing in the world
Hmm.
rather than putting up with a bunch of bullshit from people. So, and honestly, that's it too. I think I just, going through years of, just friendships and like romantic relationships and everything where, people, any relationship, there's a give and take. And,
Hmm.
if you're not meeting a person halfway, I mean, I've had to let some friendships go over the years that I really, didn't want to. But when I sat and looked, like, this shouldn't all be on me. Or, and one thing, one assumption that people like, not really like, but one assumption that people make about, especially, like someone in my position who's single and I say I have a full time job with part time hours is they think like we have all the time in the world. And I mean, I do have a lot more free time than my friends with kids or, my friends that are working like 80 hours a week. But I've been in my little kind of like bubble and shell for so long. I mean, I'm essentially unemployable at this point. And I'm very much like my friend calls it. He calls himself the friendly introvert, and I
I
say
like
like I'm
that.
an introverted extrovert. But and one of my friends, she'll tell me like, yeah, when you hit your wall, you hit your wall. Like there's no like little sign. It's just more of like a hard stop, and like okay, I gotta go. And
I'm
what
out.
I really like is my friends accept that about me, and I mean sometimes they tease me or like, oh, it's 9 o'clock. Oh my God, Rebecca, you're still here. Like, what? It's past your bedtime. We all have a good laugh about that. Um, but there's something to be said too about being able to lean into that.
Hmm.
I don't want to say isolation, but and especially like going through COVID last or 2 years ago. So my business was shut down for 3 months in 2020,
Hmm.
and that was a very hard time for me because I didn't have anyone here and I wasn't going to work. And then I realized once we were able to go back to work, within 2 days, it felt like my life was back to normal. And
So
that's
interesting.
what it made me think of like, wow, I really need to like start getting out more and start doing more stuff
That's so
because
interesting.
um yeah, it's like so much of your identity is tied up with your work. And when I couldn't go into work, for 3 months, I really struggled with like, well, who am I without my business or, without being able to fix people? And it was really hard, during that time. Um, Definitely had a little bit of like a, mental nervous breakdown, like a lot of
A
people
lot of
did.
people, yeah.
Um, but also, coming out of it too, I did some, self-discovery, and really it gave me some time to reevaluate, like, okay, what's next? Like, what do I want to do next with, with my personal life, professional life, everything. So,
Hmm.
it was a nice little reset for the world.
So I want to talk about being alone. I have that. I want to talk about that. We'll talk about that in a bit, and also more about your practice too. I liked where you were going when you were 24. Pick back up that story. When you were 24, so you dropped out of high school, got a job when you're 17, got your GED, and then when you're 24, had you kind of just sort of resigned yourself to cubicle life at that point, and then there was sort of a change, and you decided to pursue being helping people, basically.
Yeah, yeah. My last job, I say my last real job, that I had, I was working for an automotive magazine, and I liked it. I liked the work, I liked the people, and yeah, I just, I was good at that, like, admin stuff, that organizational task,
Hmm.
this, that, and the other. And again, like, sitting in a cubicle. Um, and I, I remember coming home from work one day and sitting there, and I was still living at home at the time. And I actually, my friend from high school, her and I had a deposit put down on an apartment they were going to move into with her young daughter. And like, we had our move-in date scheduled, everything. And I came home from work one day, I had another headache, and I guess it's now like what they call a quarter life crisis. um, but I saw a brochure for Irene's Myomasology Institute in Southfield, which is where I went to school. So I saw it just sitting out there and took a look. I flipped through it, and I had, like, never given a massage or gotten a massage at that point. Never once crossed my mind. Nobody was like, "Oh, you're really good at this." But I don't know, just something. Yeah, something was like, "Hey, go check this out." So I called up the school, took a tour. They had classes starting in a couple of weeks. So I went into work the next day. I put in my 2 weeks notice. I cashed in
The
my
next day,
401k to pay for school. The next day. Yeah.
what
I
this must have been a really great brochure.
I mean, no, and it's funny because the school that I toured, it wasn't even the school that we were going to be in, because they were building this beautiful brand new school. And I was actually in the first class that started and completed the 1 year program in that school.
Wow,
Um,
amazing!
but yeah, so,
Props to whoever does design the brochures or did marketing.
right? Yeah, and again, it wasn't like, it was never this like, oh, I really want to help people,
Mm,
like the thought of just touching random strangers. I'm like, ew, gross. And my biggest fear
let's be
when
real.
I was in school,
That's
yeah,
great.
my biggest fear when I was in school was that I was going to get this, like, big hairy guy on my table. And the first person in the clinic, because we had to do clinic hours, the first person that I saw in the clinic was this big hairy guy. I'm like, okay, we're just gonna dive right in here. And
Amazing.
I like to
How'd that
joke,
go?
like, it was, it was great. I mean, I guess he liked it. I joke, like, I just, I touch people for a living, or I can't remember, like, what the joke is. But yeah, so and I unfortunately told my friend I wasn't able to move in because I took a year off. I was like, I've been working since I was 14. I'm tired. 10 years in, and here I'm 30 years later.
Good.
Like, if I had gotten a real job at, DT or something, I don't know, I could retire by now and have a pension. But um
But you have your own
yeah,
company
I so
and 4 employees.
what's
You
that?
got your own company, 4 employees, and a ton of
Yeah, I got my own
customers that
company.
love
I've
you.
got a great team behind me. I mean, it's 2 o'clock on a Friday, and I'm sitting on my couch talking to you, right? It's like, and I played pickleball this morning. I mean,
Hey,
you know, yeah.
you got a good life.
I had a friend a few years ago
And your
try to
practice is
convince me.
amazing too, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of it. It has like grown into something I didn't even think it would.
Yeah.
I mean, I had no, again, I literally had no idea what I was doing when I started massage school,
Mm.
um, when I did any of this. And when I was in school, all I wanted to do was work for a fancy day spa doing fancy body treatments.
Hmm.
And I got a
Is that
job
like the
doing
holy
that.
grail of things when you're in massage? Was that like, that's like,
I mean,
people are like,
for me,
okay,
it was. Yeah. Yeah. And like you have other people who want to go into like pain management, or they use it as a stepping stone to go into like nursing school or physical therapy or something.
okay.
And actually, after I graduated from massage school, I thought about physical therapy. I applied to Wayne State, I got accepted, but then I saw the math and science requirements, and that's when it was still a master's degree. Now it's, a doctorate. But when I saw the classes, I'm like, yeah, I don't even have an associate's degree. I don't think so. So I didn't do that. But yeah, I
Doesn't
got
seem
a
like you
job.
like doesn't seem like you're at any loss though. Not doesn't seem like you're at any loss though for where you are today. With having your company. Does it feel that way to you though?
It does, and it's taken me a very long time to get to this point. Again, I mean, we just celebrated 18 years, and number one, for a small business, single owner,
Insane.
to be able to make it for 18 years, that's honestly, that's something I don't give myself enough credit for. So I'm just gonna pat myself on the back.
Virtual high five here.
That's right,
Let's go.
virtual high five. And and my dad had his own business, like my entire life. And, I, he worked very hard. He was, he provided for all of us, but you know, he made some decisions that weren't great. And, I learned a lot of what not to do by watching him. But again, I had literally no idea what I was doing
Hmm.
when I started my practice. I didn't even think I would have my own business. Again, wanted to be like that spa person. And once I was in that atmosphere, I realized how much I hated it. And it's like, I don't want to work on like wealthy women, doing seaweed wraps. Like that was boring to me. And just, I mean, honestly, the spa culture in general. And
Mm.
when I found my first
What
office,
didn't you like about that? Out of curiosity,
what did I or
didn't
didn't?
like didn't you
Yeah.
like about it? Other than I guess the seaweed wraps, maybe not like the most like
Seaweed wraps,
the
yeah.
most not like
I
impactful
can
way to I don't know.
I can still smell it. For me, it was like,
Big
I
seaweed guy.
mean, we weren't really pressured to do like retail sales like the skincare side was, but there was that kind of expectation. Like they wanted you to upsell, they wanted you to sell products,
Hmm.
they would, um, like, and this is not just in like the spa that I worked for, but this is kind of very, across the board. Like you go to a lot of these franchise, chain places where they advertise, oh, get a 1 hour massage for $49. But what you don't see is the fine print where it's like you're not getting a 60-minute massage because there's the undressing, redressing, consultation time.
All that. Okay.
Um, yeah. And for us, just like working in that industry, I mean, it was just kind of toxic. I mean, I quit there 4 different times. I was unhappy. And again, like we were just, in these tiny rooms. I mean, horrible body mechanics. You don't even have like you can't have good body mechanics with where it's at. And
That's so ironic.
um, yeah, right.
Like a
Yeah.
nasty irony.
And I remember like I worked like a 9 to 3 shift, and I had clients at like 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2. So, you barely had time to like use flip the room and
Okay.
like use the
Okay.
bathroom. And where with my practice, a 1 hour massage is, you get 60 minutes of hands-on time as long as you're on time for your appointment. And that 10 minutes like really makes a difference.
Hmm.
Um, I didn't like, again, like the, you know, pressure to sell, and honestly, just kind of the cattiness too of, you know, I mean, not everyone is going to love that they, who they work with. And I'm very, very lucky now because my, my staff that I have, like, I never thought I would have like 4 employees right now or doing all of the services that we do and really making an impact with people. But
Hmm.
I don't look at
Way
it
different
as like,
environment.
yeah, yeah. And it's not like this like boss employee, like I'm up here, you're down here. It's, I treat everyone as an equal, like we're a team where
Yeah.
we work together, we learn from each other. And,
I love that about
like,
what you're doing. And
yeah,
and the way
yeah,
you love developing people too, teaching young people
I
and
do.
developing them.
Yeah. 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 I work with one of the local massage schools, and 3 of our 4 employees, like they started out as student interns with us. And I found, because as I'm starting to kind of transition out of the treatment room,
Hmm.
to focus more on, all of my extra stuff that I do, like the breath work and, um, everything else, but also just running the business. I found I really love working with these, I call them like the brand new massage babies, and seeing them grow and seeing them step into their careers. And but I also joke that
That's
like
the
I've
coolest thing.
ruined my staff forever working anywhere else because I give them a lot of, autonomy and freedom, and again, like respect. And one of my employees, he came, over from a corporate business, and kind of the same thing that I said. It's just kind of this toxic culture where there's all this pressure on you, and I don't, and also I don't believe in people like treating people like they're beneath me. Because I always say I would not have the business I have today if it wasn't for the staff that I have. And being able to have a practice where we offer so many different services, and it's like one-stop shopping for, like your physical body, your mental body, mind, everything. So giving people, that space where, they can go and see one therapist for a massage, another one for craniosacral work, me to have a private breathwork session, or doing like scar tissue therapy and whatnot. So I really love that, our clients also trust us to, make recommendations, and know that whoever's table they're on, they're going to be taken care of.
Hmm.
And we don't like, and I always say we're not a revolving door business. We are quality over quantity every day. And I would rather have like 4 staff members that I can trust with my business and my life, rather than like 20 that are just going to make me a bunch of money,
For for
because
sure,
it's
for
like
sure.
money isn't everything.
How
If it
did
was, I would not be doing massage, I'll tell you that.
how did you? That's a. How did you talk a little bit about motivation? Like, how did you the motivation behind transitioning from focusing on massage? So, and I guess maybe yeah, like you went to massage school at 24. You worked in, you got hired in, and you quit four times at the kind of the more corporate style massage places. And then is it after that fourth time that you were like, screw it, I'm starting my own practice. Basically, I wanna do my own thing. Talk about
um
that
yeah.
starting process.
So and it wasn't just like working for a spa either. I did like short stints in like a physical therapy clinic in
Okay,
a chiropractor's
okay.
office. So
You did
I
some other
kind of
stuff
like
too.
got my feet wet with a lot of different things. And when I found my office, I was not even looking. I had 2 clients that I was seeing for house calls. And again, I really, and this is when I really have to, give credit to like whatever higher power, people believe in, like God, universe, whatever. I'm, more of like a spiritual type person.
Hmm.
So, and like looking back and seeing, like picking up that brochure when I had never once considered a massage, as a career. And then I was getting a massage from another place, like another school, and I saw a card for a dietitian. I'm like, oh, I'm going to go see her. And the dietitian was in the same office building that I ended up working out of for over 12 years. That was my first space. And I went in to see her for a consultation for myself, and we just got to talking, and I told her what I did, and she said, "Oh, there's actually a room for rent." I'm like, "I have two clients. I don't have like, the people to support that." And there was another woman who was just starting her business as well. So her and I shared the office for a year. It was just a single room. And then she left, and I thought, like, okay, I can get another person to share the space with, or I'll try it on my own. And I tried it on my own, and I worked on my own for about 5 years. And then I hired my first therapist to join me, and she was with me for about 5 years. And then
Nice.
she went off on her own, and then I stayed in that location until 2017, and I ended up, in the space I'm still at now over in Troy. And about a year after I found my office, I was going through my computer looking for something, and I found this like office wish list. And I looked at it, and I like listed, okay, this is what I want to have if I ever get my own space. And it had literally everything on that list. So I'm like, damn it, why can't I manifest a man like this? I've made plenty of those lists too, but I manifested like a great space. And we have like a studio space. And at the
Stick
time,
to, six pack, football, college football player.
I
Check,
actually,
check, check. He's got all the boxes.
one guy that I dated, he checked just about every box, but I forgot to put like no narcissists or pathological liars on there. So next list, I'm definitely going to put that on. Um, but yeah, so and
That's
I
a tough
put
one to
like I
find.
wanted a what's that?
It's a tough one to find when you get somebody who checks so many boxes. It's a tough one to find. not a,
I know,
not a.
and then you're like, okay, what level of fuckery can I put up with? you know. Um, but even looking back, like I wanted a studio to teach classes, even though I had never taken any training to teach any class, and I knew I didn't want to be a yoga teacher because I'm sorry for all the yogis out there, yoga's boring. Like if I have
I
to do
love me
one
some
more downward
yoga.
dog and chaturanga, like and I one of my best friends, she actually just messaged me earlier. She said, I know you're probably going to say no, but do you want to come to a yoga class with me on Sunday? It's a yin yoga. It's not like real yoga.
Oh,
It's
the
just
super chill
stretching.
one. That's the
Yeah.
best.
I was like, yeah, I'll come. And she said, oh my God, I can't believe it. Like, yeah, because I want someone else to tell me to stretch for an hour instead of like me telling myself or other people to stretch. Um, but yeah, I ended up in this space, and again, still like, all right, don't really know what I'm doing. And when I started my business in 2004, like there weren't the resources available that there are today for people, like coaching, masterminds,
Hmm.
Facebook. It's like, wow, my business I think is older than Facebook, or just about as old as Facebook.
When did it start? 2004.
2004.
Good for you. Wow,
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
at PS.
I know I wish I had Zuckerberg's money, but not all
A
those
little
headaches.
different industry.
Right. And again, it's like I always joke. I'm like, I did not get into massage therapy to make $1 million, but I really enjoy my work-life balance, and it's nice not to come home with headaches anymore like I used to, and just be miserable. And I see so many friends like, working 60, 70 hours a week and hate their jobs, but um, it's kind of this like keeping up with the Joneses thing, and I'm just not about that life. Give me like vacations and, just good people and good sleep, and I'm happy.
How did you get into how'd you get into doing breath work?
So I had my first experience with breath work back in 2018, when, again, another like super short notice decision. Um, I decided to go to Costa Rica and do an ayahuasca retreat by myself.
Anything in
I
particular that prompt that?
yeah, just a really shitty person in my life that had been lying to me for several years, and And I have several friends that have done ayahuasca previously, so I was starting to get a little interested in it. And just when all of like the shit hit the fan with this person,
Mm.
and
It was like a romantic thing, or
yeah, it was. And he still like pulled the wool over my eyes for several months after I got back. But again, good riddance. Glad that's over with. But I found myself like being called, and that's what people say. They're like, the plant medicine calls to you. And so I just said, all right, I think I'm going to go to Costa Rica. So I went to Costa Rica, not really knowing what to expect. And, I went to a place called Rhythmia where they have these week-long ayahuasca
is that
retreats.
the name of
And
the city, Rhythmia, or the town?
no, that's the name of the
Okay,
place.
the retreat itself.
Yeah,
Okay,
I can't remember where in Costa Rica it is, but and I had several friends that had been there, so I knew I wasn't gonna, like I'm not a camper. I'm not down with like sleeping in the dirt, in like the jungles in Peru, doing like plant medicine there. I have friends that have done that, but I like electricity and indoor plumbing too much. So, and
give
Rhythmia
me a warm
really
shower
is
in the
like,
morning, please.
yeah, and they had a pool. It was like
Nice.
it was built on this old resort.
Honestly, if
So,
you're tripping too, that's like those sort of comforts that you're used to coming from the States
yeah,
is that's nice. It's nice to be able to take a warm
yeah,
shower at the end of the day.
right, exactly. So, and what I appreciated about that place was, you're there a week. So it's not just like, oh, come in, do the plant medicine, and then we send you back
Totally,
home. It's
totally.
like they work with you on integrating everything. And before you even do the plant medicine, the ceremonies, because it is, they have shamans there. It's a very sacred practice.
Hmm.
Um, the first night there, they did a breathwork session, and the breathwork goes by many different names, like holotropic, Wim Hof, conscious circular breathing, which is like what I teach, and so is just a variation of that where I was in a room with I don't know like 50 other people, didn't know a single soul, and they start this session, they're playing music, and it's a very beautiful experience, and within minutes I'm just sobbing uncontrollably. I didn't know what was happening, but for me and everyone else there too, and everyone that I have
Were you
worked with now
had you
doing
taken the ayahuasca at that point?
no,
Wow.
this was prior. Yeah, that was our first night. So you did a breathwork ceremony before, like the night before you even did the plant medicine. And
Wow.
for the people who were unable to participate in the plant medicine ceremony for like medical, religious, any other reasons, they had them go and do more breathwork sessions. And they've said too that a breathwork session can be just as powerful as like an ayahuasca session. And I'll tell you what, man, breathwork does not taste anywhere near as disgusting as ayahuasca does. But, and just getting like that release, and also, again, being in a room with total strangers and you just don't care, and for me now, like teaching people, leading them through a breathwork
Yeah,
session, some people prefer to do it like online because they feel like it's not as vulnerable as having someone in the room with you.
for sure.
Um,
I hear
and
that.
yeah, but it was just really, really great. And, so, and then I did the ayahuasca ceremonies. Um, I actually skipped the last night, and the last night was like an all night thing, but I, the thing that I didn't want to happen was like my last night to be a bad experience, and then having to like come away from that when it's like, okay, time to go home tomorrow. And now I just had all this shit come up. Where for me, the third night, it was, like each night. So I did, 3 nights, and each night was a completely different experience there too.
What's it like? I've
And,
always been really curious. So I've done mushrooms and
mhm,
LSD, and
mhm,
um, I've always been really curious what it's like to go to like one of those ceremonies where you have like a shaman that's there that's
Yeah.
guiding you, and there's like, yeah, like what's that like? Can you like
Yeah.
describe the experience?
Yeah, it was really interesting. So, we were in like how I did it. We were in this, this like big open room,
Okay,
and we
you did it
had and it
circle
was
or
no, we were just all kind of set up, and they had like little just twin mattresses out for everyone. And again, because you're paying a lot of money to go to this place, and they're giving you a lot of like really nice amenities. So again, not just laying on the jungle floor in Peru, with your little like camping mat. Um, but how they did it is, and they did it in the evening too. And they would say, anyone who was taking the plant medicine, like, don't eat after 12 o'clock in the afternoon or something, because you want to have like a nice empty stomach. So you get in there, and they start, my God, it's been so long, but it was like they started, doing like some meditations and everything, and they would talk to everyone, and then you would go up, and you would take the medicine, and it's disgusting. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, it's this. And every time I think of it, like, I can still taste
is
it.
there like a
It's like
shaman
there's
up there just
so.
mixing it up? It's got like a pot and they're like
Yeah,
mixing it
yeah,
there.
pretty much. Like, and they're just like doling it out in these little, shot glasses.
Is
Because
that
DMT
is it
is,
like a couple ounces or like how much are you drinking?
yeah, maybe like an ounce. Yeah.
Okay, so
And,
it's not a
because
lot,
DMT, no.
but this is
And
worse than
DMT
any
is like,
whiskey that you'll ever drink. Like
what's that?
this is worse than any like liquor or whiskey that you'd ever drink. This shot of this.
Oh my God, right. It's like, what would I rather drink, ayahuasca or Jaeger? I mean, I, that's a tough choice. Um,
hope
but
hope nobody from Michigan's listening to this podcast. They'll say, well, they'll be so angry. They'll be so.
right,
Michiganders
exactly.
love their Jaeger. No idea why. There's got to be a backstory.
Oh God, oh my God, I got so drunk one night, and like, oh, that was the first and only time I've like had an actual hangover, and I did not drink for so long after that, because I'm like, I don't understand how people can drink like this like every weekend and
Right,
feel like this. I'm like, never
dude.
again.
When you
Yeah.
drink that, when you get drunk, too drunk, when you get that
Oh.
like on one like on an alcohol and just like whiskey or something that has. Dude, one time my brother-in-law and I, major aside here, one time my
Mhm.
brother-in-law and I drank a whole bottle of whiskey together, a Scotch whiskey.
Oh. Ugh.
Dude, it was the worst 48 hours of my life. The worst of my life.
Yeah. Well, and the first time, the first edible I had, my friend brought one over, and me and two of my friends. It was the day after Christmas. We ate this edible, and I remember thinking like, oh my God, it's been half an hour. It hasn't hit me yet. Oh my God, it's been an hour.
How many
Figures. I'm
milligrams was
immune
it?
to
Do you know?
weed. It doesn't work. And
Do you know how many
yeah,
milligrams
we
it was,
ended.
Becca? Out of curiosity?
What's that?
Do you know how many milligrams it was, or was this like a home baked thing?
Oh, it was like a home baked cookie. I think there was some hash in there too. It was my friend's mom's cancer cookie. She was going through chemo, and her
Oh,
and her her brother had made them. So
mm, God
um,
bless. Hope she's okay.
she's like, "Here, I got this cookie." So we each split this little cookie into three. And I remember, like, we were sitting on the couch, and my friend says to me, because I was like, "I don't feel it. I don't feel it." And then she says, "You're blinking really slow." And we ended up, because my friend's like, "Oh, I brought stoner food over." She brought like Oreos, Skittles, pizza rolls, all the
Pizza
classics.
rolls,
Oh,
dude. Yes,
pizza rolls are so gross, but
the
we're
best,
like,
dude.
oh, we're gonna do it.
They are
And
disgusting. It's like there's like a. I just picture like there's like a tube. It's like and they just like squirt like this tube of like pizza filling into pizza rolls.
oh God, they're so gross. But
But
okay,
somehow
and
amazing.
like,
But somehow it's
and I,
amazing.
I mean, like, I'm about to bake my way through this like baking cookbook, desserts. I bake the best sourdough people have ever had. Like, I've got dough rising for pizza. I'm a good cook. Yet, and I don't like pizza rolls, but the Totino's like pizza, it's just that flat little pizza,
Is that like the frozen
like the
circular
square
ones?
thing. Yeah, they're so good.
Totino's
I mean,
pizza.
Totino's pizza, not Totino's pizza rolls, but yeah, get the pizza.
Frozen food section at the grocery
Yeah,
store. Am I in like
and
the
like
right
the little
place?
plastic wrapping. Yeah,
The-
like the Supreme pizza. Yeah,
oh, and it comes like a box in the plastic wrap, and you take it out.
yeah. It's like not even a box. It's just like plastic and the little tray, and then you put it in your toaster oven. Yeah. But so we ate this and we got super high. We watched like an entire season of Parks and Rec. Ate so much food. And I remember waking up the next morning like, wow, I feel great. Like, there's no
Right?
hangover. Yeah, I ate a bunch of garbage food yesterday, but like, I can function. But when I went to Costa Rica, like, I was literally that person, like once a year at the block party, I would attempt to smoke pot and like maybe every third hit, I might get it right. Um,
What do you
kind of
mean?
like
Just
Bill
like
Clinton,
you
when he's like,
actually
I
nail
didn't
it?
inhale. Yeah. Yeah. So I went from like, low end of the spectrum weed to all the way at the end, like ayahuasca. I skipped everything in between. Like, let me just go this way.
So you're like the person.
And
You're like the person's like coughing a bunch at the block party, taking the hit on the
oh
joint, and then like the next day you're like ayahuasca retreat, 7 day ayahuasca
yeah,
retreat. Let's go, bring it.
oh yeah, and like hiding behind the garage so the other neighbors didn't see us. Like yeah, that um and then like during
My friend
COVID,
said
I was
she
talking.
did that when she went to Amsterdam. She like she like got in a circle, like they were like smoking weed, like all looking
Yeah,
all like shady Americans, and people were like, "Dude, it's Amsterdam, bro.
it's
Like,
Amsterdam.
what are you doing here?"
Funny aside with Amsterdam and dating. So I go back and forth with dating apps, and
Hate them,
I
love
was,
them.
they're so great. They're so great. So great. So I was on one recently and I got like two guys in a row, which ended up being bots. So I'm like, cool, I got my first bots on here. That's awesome. And what tipped me off, because like one guy, he like wrote me back right away and and he's like, what are you looking for on this application? So I'm like, okay, this is definitely not a person, so let's just fuck with him a little bit. So I said, well, I'm really looking for someone that can like splurge on first class tickets to Switzerland, and then we'll go down to like Amsterdam, go for a bike ride and eat some pot brownies. What do you say? And then like I got back such a canned response, and I'm like, but what about the brownie bike ride? You didn't answer that.
But the brownie
I'm actually
quicker.
trying to plan a
I'd
trip
love
to
to. See,
Amsterdam next year.
I would love to
Yeah.
see somebody like. I would love to see you successfully like turn around like one of those bot schemes. Like they reach out, they're
Yeah.
like, "Send me your bank account information," and you're like, "Totally." First, send me this about you, and they're like, "Okay,"
Yeah.
and they send it, and then you like just totally flip the script on them.
Yeah. Oh my God, that would be so fun. Um,
So, anyways, I
yeah. So,
digressed big time. But you're in
no,
How was that? How was that? How many you did it for 3 days or yeah? Like how was
I
that?
did. Yeah, I did three out of the four ceremonies. And it was just weird because like there was a person there that I think he had a bad experience, and then he was going around and telling people like, oh, this isn't real, or like they're trying to take, I don't know. It was
He's
very,
tripping.
it was very strange. I don't even know, but like some people really were.
Mm. Did you
Um,
trip? Out of curiosity.
I did. So the first night, okay, so you're in there and you go up, you take the first dose of medicine, and they have a motto of like, don't think, drink, and also if you can stand, you can go take a second dose. And they encouraged
Hmm.
people. They never forced, they never pushed it. They encouraged you. Look, if you can, if you're comfortable, like take a second dose, dig deep. And
Wow.
yeah,
Brave.
so and then so you take it, and it takes, it's kind of like edibles, it takes a time to get into your system. It's probably a good 45 to 60 minutes. So we're just sitting there, like we're breathing, meditating, and they really um are kind of sticklers about like having it being a nice quiet experience.
Mhm.
And throughout the night, there were some people that were really like, you could see them, they're struggling, they had a lot of shit to let out. But
Like
one of
heaving, like
the
physically, like heaving, or
oh yeah, that too, because I did that, yeah. And but, or like yelling, crying, it was everything. And I experienced all of that too. But
Crazy.
when someone was getting like really, I don't want to say like, loud, but when they were kind of struggling a little bit, like one of the aides, would come and take them outside,
Hmm.
and go sit with them. So, it was a very safe experience too. But, while you're waiting for the medicine to kind of kick in, like, you do some journaling, do some meditating
Mm-hmm.
and whatnot. So, the first night it was really interesting, because I had some like visions. I don't know if it was something that like actually happened or more of this like I don't know. It's like are
Hmm.
are you hallucinating? Whatever. Um, but it left me feeling like very unsettled.
Do you mind sharing?
So
Like, it's okay if you don't
um,
mind sharing. Do you mind sharing like things that you saw or anything like that? It's just, yeah.
yeah. So there was one, and like I was laying on on like the mattress there, and I had made a couple friends, so like we were next to each other
Okay.
and whatnot. But that first night, I was just laying there, eyes closed, and I kept getting this like feeling of being in like a park restroom, like a public, bathroom in a park,
That's so crazy.
and somebody with like stringy hair and this like, mesh trucker hat. And I'm laying on like the mattress here, like punching and kicking, as if I'm trying to like fight this person off of me. So I had this moment of, and this was like going into it, to my knowledge, I've never had any like sexual, physical abuse or anything like that. But, who knows? Like the mind is a very powerful
Mm-hmm.
tool.
Mm-hmm.
And, it really has a way of like shutting things off to protect us.
Mm-hmm.
And going into this, I had this conversation with myself of like, hey, what if something comes up that something did happen like
Mm-hmm.
at some point that it's just been completely blocked out. So,
That's
but
kind of
like that
scary.
was as yeah, it's very scary.
Mm.
And they also talk about like purging when you're taking
Is
ayahuasca.
that like the vom?
And usually people like puke or poop. So everybody had their like 5-gallon bucket. So if you had to throw up, it was right there. But also like laughing, crying, yawning, all of those things are types of purging. And
Mm.
for me, when it was like first kicking in, it's like I could not take in enough air. I just kept yawning and yawning, and it's like trying to like get all this air in. And so then like that, I had that kind of vision. And then um
Mm.
and I still like to this day, like, did something happen, or like, was I just tripping?
Yeah.
um but that first night, I walked away feeling very unsettled. And the next day I was kind of like, okay, what's going to happen tonight? Is it going to be like a continuation, like, hey, on last night's episode, or is it going to be something completely different? So
Thing.
one of the things that they had up there was, they had these like signs, the like mantras, and it was um like, show me who I've become, um merge me back with my soul, like heal my heart, something like that. So that second night I decided, like, okay, you know
Mm.
what, I'm
Reconnecting
gonna
with myself, basically.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna use their suggestions. So after I took the medicine, I just kept repeating that to myself, like, show me who I've become. And what was really crazy was, like, once it started to kick in, I felt my face contorting, like just like utter like disgust. And what I kept hearing was like, this is disgusting, like, you're disgusting, this is all like awful. I mean, it was like there was this black cloud over my head. And I remember I was like sitting, on my mattress and like looking around at people and just like, ew, just complete and utter disgust. And so I went up, because they were like, okay, take a, time for dose number 2. So I went up there and, they ask you like, how are you feeling? And even standing in line, I'm like, oh, just, I couldn't see myself, but I could feel just like the ugliness. And so I told her, I said, I'm disgusted by everything right now. And she's like, that's fantastic. So I took another drink and then, and it's like, I felt like there was something in my throat that just needed to come out. So then I'm like on my hands and knees, kind of like rocking back and forth, trying to get myself to throw up. And then like the shaman came over and he's like doing his little magic, like waving all of his like smoke signals around me, everything. And I finally just started purging, throwing up. And it's dark in there, it's like 11 o'clock at night. So it's, they have like some candles, but it's dark. And but all I saw coming out was just like black. And it's funny because like later, when it and the end of the ceremony that evening, they turned the lights on, and I'm like, I didn't want to look in here, but I looked in my bucket and there was barely anything in there, but I felt like I was throwing up like for an hour and just saw this like black coming out, and it's almost as if I could like feel like something coming out of me. And I remember like, and the shaman is there and I had like my eyes closed. I was on my knees. I was kind of like waving around, like taking in all of his little magic. And after that though, like I remember I like saw a lion. I mean, there wasn't an actual lion, but I just like saw one, in my mind. And right there I was like, that's my spirit animal. And I swear to God, if there had been a tattoo artist, like I would probably have a big ass lion tattoo right on my arm. So I'm glad there wasn't one there. But
Is
then
it
after
emotional at the
that,
same time as you're having?
oh, I was crying. Yeah, I was like everything.
Because
And
psilocybin
what's
is
really,
not really. Correct me if you disagree, but
yeah,
psilocybin to me doesn't feel as emotionally stimulating. I feel things, but I
yeah,
don't have those same experiences that I hear about people that are taking ayahuasca, like that you're having, where it's like literally like pulling things out of you emotionally.
yeah, yeah. And right, like for me, psilocybin, anytime I take anything bigger than a microdose, I end up crying. But it's because like and even sometimes, especially when I'm getting back into microdosing after I've taken like a little tolerance break or something, the first maybe week or so, the day I take it, because I do, I think his name is James Fadiman's protocol, like 1 day on, 2 days off
Nice.
of microdosing with psilocybin. But um, like sometimes the first couple of times I take it, I get really just crabby, really emotional. Like my emotions are just heightened. Um, but uh, yeah, and like when I do, a larger dose of mushrooms, or I'll like pair it with a breathwork session and cry my eyes out for 45 minutes. But then for like 3 weeks after, I feel great, because it's like you've purged all of that stuff.
Mm.
And so after that second night with ayahuasca, I like after I purged all that stuff, like and they talk about something called sacred surgery,
Mm.
where and because people have said like my Lyme disease is gone, or like I had a tumor that shrank, after going and doing ayahuasca. Um, but so they talk about this like sacred surgery where you can actually like see like little aliens or something, working on you. And that actually happened for me. I felt like my chest was open, but it was all like a bunch of mechanical stuff in here. And who is it from probably before your time, but the Jetsons had this little like green, I think his name was Gazoo or something. This little like green alien guy that would like float around, and I saw him like in here tinkering, putting stuff together. And then I was laying there, and my grandmother, who I was very close to, she passed away in 2014. And
Mm.
and she was in a wheelchair the last couple of years of her life. And um, I was just laying there on my mattress, after I had like purged everything, and I saw myself sitting on a bench, and my grandma was sitting next to me in her like blue polyester like pantsuit that she always wore. And she didn't say anything. She was just like holding my hand. She patted my hand because she used to do that all the time.
Great.
When I would see her, she would just like pat my hand. And again, we did not say anything to each other. But then she got up and she walked away. And I, after that, like I physically felt this just like yellow light just like emanating from my chest. And I even like took a before and after photo. And after, it's like I was glowing, and just being able to like get rid of just all of that shit and everything. And and I remember like walking out of there, that night, and I was like, oh my God, that was amazing. And then the third night, I just,
Hmm.
I went into it and I asked myself like, um, what do I need?
Hmm.
And all I kept hearing that
Good
night,
question.
and all I kept hearing was rest, rest. So I only did one dose that night. And like I needed help even getting up and walking to the bathroom because I was, and I walked and I sat outside for a little bit, but it's like I felt like I was glued to whatever surface I was on. And again, I was still aware of everything that was going on, but and I remember I was just like laying on the bed, looking at some other people go by, and when they called people up for a second dose, I'm like, I can't move. I mean, it's like if you would have picked my arm up, it would have just dropped right back down. So it's like, okay, I really needed just some rest that night. So it was just a very like calm, quiet, peaceful evening and then the next day, because the next day was like the all night ceremony. They were starting at like 6 p.m. till 6 a.m. And that's when I had decided like, I think I'm good. And looking back, it's unfortunate that I let out, other people's, experiences and perspectives there, influence what I was doing, because I feel like maybe that would have been, something really good for me to go and do that last one. But I was talking to one guy after that third night, we were talking the next day, and I said, are you going back? He's like, man, because he was having a rough night, and
Hmm.
you could hear him like he was talking in Spanish, like to his mom, who was not there, and they kept having to like take him outside because he was being a little disruptive. And I'm like, hey, you either had a really good night or a really bad night last night. And people will say like, oh yeah, I saw Mother Ayahuasca, they see like a snake, and like I said, I felt like I had a snake like coming out of my throat.
Hmm.
Um,
Do you see these things as well?
Sometimes, because some people will get like really strong visuals where I didn't. Like my friend that I was next to, she saw a lot of like geometric patterns and shapes, and they say that's pretty common. I didn't really get a lot of the visuals, but and this guy, he's like, I gotta go back tonight. I can't leave like with how last night went. So he had a very challenging experience. So
Hmm.
he's like, yeah, I can't leave. I can't not do not work through this. So that was my biggest concern, is like, I had a really just like peaceful night the night before. I don't want to come back to this and my last night be like something that's going to just fuck me up for a while.
Hmm.
And they do talk about like the integration too, like when you go back home, like take your time getting back into things. But I left on such short notice, I had to juggle so many things around. So like I got home, and 2 days later I was back at work and just back into the thick of things. And
Hmm.
for probably a good 2 weeks after, like, man, I was shitty to people. Like I was just in a bad mood, I was just like really just short tempered. But because I didn't have enough time to like process everything and integrate everything. But it was, probably like 2.5 weeks later, I finally kind of felt calm after that. It's like, okay, that's, that's what it should feel like. And so from there, like I got really just interested in like psychedelic therapy and plant medicine. I started, listening to some podcasts where, like this one woman, and this was again like 4 years ago, and to see how far we've come in the last, 4 or 5 years, like now, they're decriminalizing mushrooms. They're using, MDMA therapy, psilocybin, LSD for like PTSD, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really fascinating. And so I kind of headed down this path of like research, self-discovery, everything. Um, I had talked to a few, close trusted friends. Sorry, I have to plug my laptop in.
Oh, for sure.
Where, I was like, hey, I think I'm going to do MDMA. And my friend's like, oh, you're doing drugs. I'm doing, psychedelics for therapeutic reasons.
Mm.
And I had on like rollsafe.org and tripsafe.org. They're both harm reduction websites for, psychedelic use. And it's really nice that something like that exists for, those of us who are interested in experiencing it in a more therapeutic way
Yeah.
rather than like, oh, I just want to trip balls. Like, I don't like tripping, and even when I do take mushrooms, I'll microdose over a macrodose any day of the week. But also it just makes me more aware of like when I do have these feelings come up, like, okay, there's still some stuff that I'm not working through. And, and it's like I always say in my business, do as I say, not as I do. But I've started, just taking my own advice, like from what I tell
Mm.
clients. Fair five.
That's awesome.
Thanks.
That's awesome.
I did LSD once, and I
What
did.
would you say when you came back? What would you say the impact of that ayahuasca retreat was on? Is that you on your breath work? Like, was that like? Would you? Yeah. What would you say the impact was? That kind of the first. Yeah. What would you say the impact of that retreat was, and what you learned on that retreat on your interest
I
in breath work as a practice?
Yeah, I honestly I didn't even revisit breathwork for several years after that. It wasn't one of those things. I mean, I very much have shiny object syndrome, ADHD problems,
I,
right?
I hear.
Like, ooh, what's my hyper focus going to be this week? And so
Did it kind of like
I
catalyze the process of like your interest in other psychedelics as potential therapeutic?
definitely. Yeah. So from going from like just, weed occasionally to ayahuasca, now then it was like, all right, let me backtrack and see all these other things, that are out there. So, um, and and again, like you have to be really careful. You can't just post on Facebook like, hey, who's got some acid? Because I want to do some inner work, right? And um, so, I found a trusted person, and so and that way too, like what you're taking, it's or when people take like I've taken just twice in my life like a therapeutic dose of MDMA, like pharmaceutical grade. It's not like Molly that's cut with who knows what. I
Mm-hmm.
used to, like, oh yeah, acts like I would do Molly every weekend and roll. Like, no, I don't, again, I did it in a way of, okay, Roll Safe says if you plan on doing this more than one time in your life, wait, 6 to 9 months before doing your second dose because it completely depletes your serotonin. But when I
Right.
did MDMA for the first time, again, I was using supplements, like 5-HTP I took, for several days before and after to help kind of rebuild that serotonin. I avoided certain foods and, again, treating like I say, and again, people who aren't in kind of like the realm that we are of this curiosity, of it.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, oh, you're on drugs. And it's like, no, I'm, again, I do my research. I don't take this lightly. And there's a very intentional, purpose behind it. And I like sent some videos to friends and I'm like, oh my God, everybody needs this. Like, I'm so happy right now. And it wasn't like just, like, oh my God, let's go to the car wash and look at all the pretty colors. It was like I was home. I, lined up a friend to come and be a trip sitter for me, just to check on me.
That's smart.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
because again, it's like, I'm not doing this for fun. I'm doing this
To
to,
heal.
heal and connect with myself more. And it wasn't
Can
even,
you talk about that a little bit? Like what, like, are there any, yeah, like, can you talk about like what you are seeking
yeah.
when you, yeah, what you're seeking?
So, and again, like, I mean, I thought I would have, gotten married and had kids years ago, but life just worked out in different ways. But it's really hard to, find a person to share my amazing life with. And, it's not like I'm looking for someone to come in, like, fix my life or help me start my life. It's like, I've got a really great life and I want to share it with someone. So, I've done a lot of
Mm.
work with myself of like, well, why aren't these relationships working out? Or why do I keep getting drawn to these people? But it's like, look what I do for a living. I fix people. So I get, a guy who has like unresolved trauma or whatever issues he's got that maybe he's not even aware of. And, women were always like, oh, we can fix him. Right? No, I'm done fixing. I'm done fixing people unless they're paying me to do it. Um,
You have a very helping personality. Have you ever heard of the Enneagram by chance? That like personality kind of test?
well, I am. I think I might be a 6. I don't know. I've done it a
Okay.
few times. I can never remember like what I am or what my like Briggs Myers is or anything. Um,
Okay.
yeah,
I
but
was thinking you might be a 2, which is like the helper Enneagram.
maybe that kind of sounds familiar. Now I'm going to go take a test later and I'll let you know what it is. Um, but
I have a
for
friend that sends
me,
me. I can send you some some like, quotes on it.
yeah.
I thought I was a 3,
Hmm.
but my friend Anna. She's like super into these things and
Yeah.
very knowledgeable about them. She's like a good at reading people, I think, and
Hmm.
like seeing people,
Yeah.
And she sent me this info on the 2, and it said, "Can you relate to this? You focus if you're with people, you really focus on helping people,
Hmm.
like, but it's good for you to be alone because you can then let go of that and then focus on help being present for yourself, being there for yourself,
Yeah.
and healing." Um, Psychedelic therapy kind of for me how it. I'm curious for you if if that's part of what you're seeking in it almost
Yeah. Yeah.
looking inward and getting that kind of healing.
Yeah, and and it's like kind of like with the breath work too, right? People say like a breath work session is like years of therapy in an hour. And
Oh,
I'm
it was for me.
yeah, I'm so glad and I'm so glad like you were able to come and experience it too. And I'm so glad you had a good experience. Um
I was crying.
yeah, that and I know I joke and like I get paid to make people cry. It's great. Um, but and also like to allow yourself, especially men, because they feel like they have to, put on their like, oh no, I'm a guy, like can't show my feelings, can't get in touch with my emotions. And I have
Yep.
friends like previous relationships that are like that, where they are so emotionally closed off. And I joke like I'm kind of the anti-massage therapist. Like I don't wear patchouli, I shave my legs, I don't listen to Enya, but I'm also again like I'm a helper. And people will sometimes like in that community they'll refer to someone like me as like a light worker, and they said that at Rhythmia too. I'm like, I'm very like grounded in the skepticism, but I'm also very open to like antidepressants for the rest of my life, or I'm really impatient, so I don't want to go through 6 months of therapy to uncover some stuff where, again, like take a gram of, golden teachers, put on a breathwork playlist, and just wait to see what comes out. And after
Mm-hmm.
a breathwork session, especially when you throw, some mushrooms into the mix, it's very much like you just feel cleansed,
Totally.
and
Totally.
you're exhausted because you just like got everything out there, but you walk away feeling like, holy shit, like I feel great, I feel like I can do anything now. And like the first time I did the MDMA, and I just did one like 0.125, grams, like a low dose, an empty go strand. It wasn't even like that day or the next day. And, with that, they talk about like Blue Monday because, your serotonin is tanked. And like 2 days later, like nobody wants to do
Yeah.
anything, where I never experienced
Mm-hmm.
that because, again, I came from a very like responsible place with it. But it
Mm-hmm.
was, the best way I can describe it is it's as if there was an emotional wet blanket that had just been taken off my shoulders.
That's amazing.
And you're just, and the same thing like with breath work, whether or not you're pairing it with like psychedelics or, an edible or anything, or just going in stone cold sober, like people walk away and they're like, I feel so much lighter right now, because they don't
Mm.
realize how much shit we're just like holding on, in our bodies on a regular basis.
Mm.
I was just speaking with someone a couple days ago where she saw this TikTok thing, and I mean, I don't do TikTok, but this woman was like, "Here are 10 signs that um, your hips hurt. You get headaches." Like, okay, yeah. But my friend had said like, okay, what magic do you have for this? And I'm like, I don't know, maybe a breathwork session. And she said, she's like, I want to do it, but I'm scared. And that's kind of like the overwhelming message with some people is, it's like they're afraid of what's going to come up, or, think about it, like when we're constantly shoving all these things down because you're like, I don't have time for this right now, I'll deal with it later, but you don't want to deal with it. And I'm the same way because, I know I'm probably like a few days overdue for it. But again, I have a like PhD in procrastination as well, and push everything off. But then after I do it, it's like, why didn't I do that a week ago?
Right.
Like rolling out with my therapy balls, like, oh my god, it feels so good. Why am I not doing this every day?
Right. So circling back to like what you are seeking, I guess,
Oh
could
yeah,
we
sorry,
talk a little bit more
way,
about that?
way off.
Oh, all good.
No, just so and again, especially like with the dating and everything. Someone used a term recently. They said like, I'm a self-improvement junkie, you know? And I I mean, I have worked with so
I
many people, again, like, going and doing ayahuasca, getting into like psychedelic therapy, seeing a therapist, like hypnotherapy, this thing called rapid transformational therapy, which is like hypnotherapy on steroids. And this woman that I worked with, and she's got all kinds of like magic, up her sleeve. She's got a psychology background. She does like neuro linguistic programming, all these other, other things, not just like, oh, I'm going to put you in a trance and help you stop smoking. Um, but she told me last year, she said, you keep trying to fix yourself. You don't need to be fixed. Like, you're fixed. And for me, it
beautiful.
was, and especially like seeing how a relationship didn't work out, or seeing how, my business wasn't doing as good as I wanted it to. And I very much like compare myself to others. My imposter syndrome um, is huge. Pleaser too.
Hmm.
So the overwhelming message I always heard in my head was, well, what's wrong with me? Or it's like, why doesn't that person want me? Why doesn't that person want to be with me? What have I done wrong? Or even like, when a friendship would kind of just end naturally, or I mean, even when I was a kid, my best friend growing up, she was a bully to me. And every time she got mad, like I found myself apologizing because I hate
Mm.
conflict, I hate confrontation. And that was something that I worked, that like came up a few years ago when I was working with someone. And I realized like, oh my God, this is like going back to, my childhood. And, like I didn't want to help my friend with her paper route. So she wouldn't talk to me for a week. And then again, I would go apologize. Or when I was dating someone and they were being like the shitty person, I found myself apologizing just to kind of smooth things over because like I don't want, I don't like, again,
Mm.
confrontation, any of that. So going down the rabbit hole like I did, and like researching all these different things, trying all these different things, it was very much a way because I thought there was something like within me that was broken and needed to be fixed. But yeah, it's amazing, like being able to have a tool like just breathing in a certain way, to help us. But yeah, so this book, 100
Hmm.
days, yeah,
I'll add to that. I'll add to that though, just to add, because
mhm,
for folks listening that haven't done what you do,
yeah,
it's not just breathing, I would say, because a lot of
right,
people say, "Oh, meditate,"
hmm,
and meditation is great. I do it twice a day, but I experience so much more from
yeah,
your class, our session together, because you are giving such pointed and powerful affirmations at just the right time with the right. You have so much like love in your
oh, thank
voice
you,
and compassion and empathy in your voice, and um, yeah, and you're just really, I see it that when I see the trip sitting thing, because I see it because you're really guiding this journey, this inward journey that's going on. And it's amazing because I'm going through this inward journey and I'm like, how does Rebecca know that I'm going through this stage of the
right,
journey right now and know exactly what to say and know the right music to play and
mhm,
know when I need to express this or, when I
yeah,
need to look inward or when I need to be more expressive. And um,
yeah.
I lit out
That like
so much,
I
so
can't
much.
tell you how much like that fills my cup, and I always say like I love getting people on my table and pulling whatever I'm pulling out of my bag of, my little like toolbox of tricks I've learned over the last 20 years to help someone. But over the last several years, I've also realized as much as I love fixing people and helping people, I love teaching people how to fix themselves. Like I did it for a friend and she had a really tough time. Like she was very physically uncomfortable. She kept getting distracted with thoughts, but that's why we do it because and I always say like, when I said at the start, don't think about
Mm.
your brain because your brain is going to try to come in and like control the show, and that's exactly is what happened with her. She started to get these like physical manifestations, and or she started to have, like, oh my god, I'm thinking about my shopping list. Like, okay, you can just put it back out, and the breath, and like I say, the breath isn't, it's not about breathing, it's about using the breath to bring all of those trapped emotions and all that stuck shit like up to the surface. And one of my friends, like after she did a session,
Right.
and she told me kind of the same
Hmm.
thing you did. She's like, that was better than any yoga class I've ever taken. And she worded it perfectly. She said, if you're tired of white knuckling your emotional baggage, like you need to do this.
Before we hop,
Yeah.
let's call this part one. Let's definitely do a round two, and we can continue this conversation. But before we
Yeah.
go, just kind of a quick for people that are listening that want to follow along with what you're doing. Where can they find you? On social or online? How can they get in touch with you?
Yep. We are Michigan Massage and Wellness in Troy, Michigan. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Michigan Massage and Wellness. I think we have a TikTok. Don't look for us on TikTok. I don't know how to do TikTok. But yeah, Michigan Massage and Wellness. Just Google us, and apparently I have really good SEO on my website because we're everywhere. I have people drive like 2 hours for certain treatments because they're like, "You're the only person in the state that does this." I'm like, "Yep, I am," and I booked for the next month, so better get your appointment scheduled. Yeah, and
Speaking
I
from
also have.
experience, can highly recommend.
Thank you. I also have a Facebook group. It's called Self Care School, but you have to search for like Self Care School. And that's where like I just did my first online group breathwork class. I'm going to be putting together some more virtual classes in there. Like stretching, mobility. Who knows what else?
Heck yeah. Heck yeah.
Yeah, it was awesome though. Thank you so much for having me on. And man, you and I, like, we could just talk forever.
I could honestly, if I didn't have something to go to at 4:30,
Right?
I'd
Same.
keep going.
Yeah. Right.
Easily. Easily.
Yeah. This was so much fun. And I mean, and this is what I love. Like, we just all over the place talking about Saturn.
You're amazing, Rebecca. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You're amazing too. I appreciate you and everything that you're doing as well. Like, putting this together, putting this out to your audience, and your products and everything. I love the sleep blend. I keep that on my nightstand, and I'm actually going to
Thank
be
you.
taking a little bit of a tolerance break from cannabis when I go to on vacation next week. But I'm definitely going to be taking that with me.
Nice.
Yeah,
Thanks for letting the listeners
yeah,
know too that you like it.
yeah. It's awesome. Yeah, definitely.
All right. Peace and love to you, and see you next time. Have a great
All
rest of your
right.
Friday.
Yes, you too.
And that's our show. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a minute to subscribe on Spotify and on YouTube. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you next time.